It's been about 2 months since I talked about Omniscient Reader and how the main character, our MC, sacrifices himself and he dies and ejects him out of the main scenario to be able to save everyone, all the main characters within the story. It was a very incredible twist and conclusion to this arc that honestly I titled my entire video about it 2 months ago. Omniscient Reader is a gift that keeps on giving. It is a series that legitimately blows me away every time I sit down and I read a new chapter. And FYI, for those that are still unaware, Omniscient Reader is getting an anime. This series in particular is getting an anime adaptation. We don't know many details yet on exactly who is working on it and everything, but if we had to take an educated guess, I'm going to assume it's going to be a very well-dedicated team, because Omniscient Reader is easily one of the most popular webtoon series on the platform. So, I will say that if this gets a good staff, it could go down as the top 3 or top 5 best anime of the year that it airs in. And I believe it is airing next year in 2025. So it's really not that long to really wait. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Omniscient Reader is such a good story. I've covered this so often on my channel for years at this point. I've been reading the series basically since it only had maybe 17, 18 chapters. I remember reviewing it years ago, and obviously at the time when I was reviewing it when it first started as a webtoon, the novels were already out, and I believe they were already completed, like the original novels of Omniscient Reader, but I've never really dived into the novels, and I'll talk more about that later on in this video. But the point is that Omniscient Reader is a series that I've actively been engaging with for a very long time, and the more and more I read it, it has never reached that point where I felt like it was falling off, or it was getting boring, or just not enjoyable. It always manages to be meta to a certain level, fourth wall breaking, and also just have really good engagement with the characters. Not just the MC, but everyone else around the MC. And I think that's what made this arc here in particular so enjoyable, because it was the actual combination of all the side characters coming together to bring down the MC, showcasing that yes, the MC was holding himself back because he didn't want to harm his friends and the people he cares about, but they all came together with their own skills, their own stats to be able to bring him down. And though he was auto-moving thanks to the mechanics of being like a Demon King, thanks to the scenario, he still was brought down by the effort of everyone else. And it was just a really good sequence. I love it. It was a great, great moment for the arc and the story in general, and it allowed the support slash side characters a little bit of independence and allowed them to grow outside of being associated with the MC. Just so good, man. It was a really good sequence of events. But anyways, a lot has happened since then. The last time I talked about Omniscient Reader was around chapter 218, and now there's around 230 chapters out now. And there's actually even more than that. I believe there is 240 actually. I have read all those, and I'll talk about some of that content in a moment, but for now, let's get into what's been happening since the events of the MC literally dying to be able to save everyone. So, he was ejected out of the scenario, and to give some backstory, brief little summary for those that might be tuning in that might not know about Omniscient Reader, which I'm just going to say, if you're wanting to know if you should read it, you should definitely read the series. Really good. But he was ejected out of the scenario. And what this theoretically means is that the very world itself that the story takes place in, he was ejected out of that space. It's kind of like a book. You have a book opened up, there's a bunch of words and stuff on the page that describes different events and all that. He was literally removed from that book, and he was in the blank space around the book. It is a very fascinating moment within the story, because we get to see what happens when the story isn't focused on the set environment. It's focusing on the story outside of the story. It's so meta, and that's one of the big reasons why I've always loved Omniscient Reader, is that it breaks the fourth wall, which is funny, because obviously the MC, you know, our main character here, he actually has an ability called the fourth wall. And I really do like that this arc is kind of engaged with the fact that the fourth wall has a personality, and that it is actually growing and adapting. It's able to actually speak with the MC and tell them how he feel, or how they feel and all that. It's a very fascinating direction the story's going. It reminds me a lot of reincarnated as a slime. Now, I don't know necessarily which came first. I have no idea. I'm not going to really dive into that one, because obviously the novels of, you know, Omniscient Reader existed before this, you know, webtoon. So, I don't know exactly the time frame when Reincarnate as the Slime started coming out and when this, but it's not unfathomable to think that the plot points of, like, an entity, like this NPC, like, entity, like a system, talking with the main character, it's something very common within storylines, especially like this with power fantasies and stuff, so it's nothing necessarily unique, it just depends on how it's used. But I do like the evolution of the fourth wall, and how it's become its own personality, entity, and character. It's no longer just a skill, it actively is keeping the MC company and talking with him and helping him through the situation. In fact, if it wasn't for the fourth wall, he would have died being ejected out of the scenario. So let's get into that. So the world outside of the scenario is a very dark, cold, and bleak place. It honestly might as well be the realm of Dark Souls itself. There is nothing good whatsoever. It's basically like, oh, this is the aftermath. The cleanup crews coming in, literally cleaning up the environments, the mess and all that, and just moving on because it's not important. Nobody's watching it, nobody cares about it, and so existence within these realms is very limited, and if you're someone that was in a scenario ejected out, your body literally will start breaking down, which comes into the main plot point within this current arc, is that the MC, his body is breaking down. He had to cobble together broken stories and pieces and stuff to form himself a body that could even be able to walk around in this realm. But the thing is that because of that, he can't utilize his full extent of his abilities because he doesn't, like, have a role in this. He's not participating within the story right now. He's not technically in the scenario. He's an exile, and it leads to a lot of complications to where he's trying to figure out how to survive and how to, you know, get help from other people, which leads into the main objective of the current arc. And the main premise is him becoming a revolutionary and taking down the dukes and even potentially demon kings to actually survive and get away from here. So I think I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself because I've skipped a lot of plot points. So basically, the main objective is that he had to survive outside the scenario. He managed to do that. He got warped to the demon realm, which has been hinted at and talked about for basically since the first 15-20 chapters of Omniscient Reader. But on top of that as well, he now is potentially in line to become the next Demon King. And if he becomes the next Demon King, which has been hinted at already thanks to the events of the last arc with him being slayed as the potential upcoming Demon King, I wonder what renown and fame he would gain, because obviously if he became the Demon King, it means he would become the ruler of the Demon Realm, aka what's going on here, which would be pretty cool. But once again, right now, he's trying to have his body be able to stay present where he doesn't die. On top of that, he's now having to face demons and entities that are basically the exact enemy of the constellations and people kind of the star stream. The entities within this world literally are exactly against the main scenarios. So that's fascinating. I am very curious about that one, and hopefully we get more information as this arc unfolds. But anyways, it's so cool to me because it's like, it feels like we're taking a little bit of an adventure here. It feels, honestly, the most adventurous arc that we've gotten so far within the story, because it's no longer with the other characters around him. He's literally by himself, and don't get me wrong, I like the support characters. I like their focus and their development that they have gotten within the story, but it's nice to return to form and focus on the MC a little bit, because it has been kind of a bit. It has been a bit since we really heavily have focused on him a lot, and I have really enjoyed his development so far. But there is a fascinating thing that's being built up here. A new MC is being introduced into the story. There is a blonde-haired character that even the MC talks about. He's like, hey, this guy within the original novel, he was the MC that was supposed to, like, be a counter, like, you know, protag with June. And obviously, what's being hinted at here is a meta level of, like, Fourth Wall, where, like, he is now going to be a secondary main character, which would make the main characters a trio, which would be pretty cool. I'm curious to see where that's going to go, especially since one of the characters literally now has this wall. He actually has a wall that he can talk to, not the Fourth Wall, but, like, this weird wall. So the fourth wall isn't the only ability, skill, and all that, where it is an entity that can talk to the world, or talk to you in general. There's other abilities like that. So there is a lot of mysteries building up within this story, and I am legitimately curious to see where this is going to go. Omniscient Reader is such a good freaking read, honestly. I have enjoyed every moment of reading this every single week, and I can't get enough of it, man. It's so good. The artwork is incredible, the story progression's incredible, the side characters are incredible. I mean, it is something that continues to impress me week after week when a new chapter comes out. It is one of the only series that I actually spend coins on, actually spend money to read the chapters in advance, because that's how much I legitimately enjoy it, because the artwork is just so good, man. The background art and stuff, it looks so good. But yeah, to get into the main point, I want to talk about the novels for a second. So, obviously, the novels of Omniscient Reader exist, and I have held back a very long time of reading those said novels, because I didn't necessarily want to, spoil the read of the webtoon. But the more and more I read of this, the more I really want to dive into the novels, because I've been itching to read something, especially since I've caught up with ReZero, and I don't really have much reading material right now. I like a good book from time to time. So maybe I might dedicate some time very soon to reading this story, because it has been very good. So I gotta ask you guys, if you guys are novel readers, where should I begin? Should I just start where this is? Or should I start from the very beginning? Be honest in the comments below, I'm legitimately curious. But I want to wrap up the video here. I wanted to glaze up the latest stuff that's been going on within Omniscient Reader as of late. If you do enjoy the series and you want to read it for yourself, link is in the description. You can read it completely for free. But I love you guys. Be safe, stay healthy. Chibi out.